Okay. Morning. First of all, welcome from myself to Glasgow City Council. I agree that we've found a nice, subtle, understated room to have this event in. I was hearing afterwards that if you look up there, you'll notice there's a balcony. And apparently, in the dim and distant past, they used to have string quartets that would play up there while they were having banquets down here. So we've got tea and coffee. We can't do you the string quartet, unfortunately. So, oh well. Unless there's any musicians in the audience that want to volunteer. Nope. Okay, I'm just going to set a little bit of, I suppose, focus for today. Our theme is on practical aspects of delivering information records management. And it's a topical subject. It's always topical. There's a number of current events. There's a number of things on the horizon that we could talk about. But just as I was coming in, I bumped into someone who was former leading light in the campaign for freedom of information. And I thought, oh, I didn't see his name on the delegate list. He's not here for that. He was here for a children's panel hearing. And, sorry, speak up. He was here for a children's panel hearing. And he was telling me that they've actually all just been through their own information governance training on the back of a number of data security breaches that they've had. And I like the approach that they've taken. So Children's Hearing Scotland have taken a very subtle approach to their information governance training for panel members, which is, if you haven't finished the training by the end of this month, you're off the rota. Full stop. End of. I thought, I like that. If only we could have that kind of mandate for driving it through ourselves. So it is something that is topical. It applies to all the organisations that are here. In terms of what I'm going to mention, and talk about some of the drivers for change that we're dealing with. In keeping with the theme of today, it's about practical implementation. So I'm going to be talking about the people, the processes, and critically, the pound signs. This is a good day to be in the city chambers talking about pound signs, because today, those of you from local government might know this, today is the last day legally that a local authority has to set its budget. And the budget setting meeting for Glasgow is taking place this afternoon. Now, there are no fire alarms scheduled, but you might, sometime after lunch, you might hear a bell ringing. That bell is the division bell. We still have a division bell in Glasgow. If there's a division at the full council, they ring the bell, and the councillors have got 2 minutes to get into the chamber, then they lock the door and take the vote. I was telling someone just before we started, way back in the 70s, there was a minority Conservative administration that ran the council, and there was a critical vote that the administration were only going to take through if they had a majority. So they did the head count, and they thought, yes, we can push this one through. So they move it to the division, the bell rings, time passes, the doors are locked, and at that point, a Labour councillor emerges from the chimney where he'd been hiding from the start of the meeting. People took their politics seriously back then. So if you hear a bell ringing, it's the division bell and not the fire alarm. So, first thing I was going to say is about drivers for change. Obviously, the main driver that I think most of us would be concerned with is the Public Records Scotland Act and the development and implementation of your records management plan. A lot of us in here will have our records management plans approved. We have ours in Glasgow approved. But in common with almost everyone, ours is what's called an improvement model. So we have a records management plan approved, which doesn't say that we're brilliant, although we are. What it says is we've identified a journey. We know where we need to go with this. It's an improvement model. Here's the things that we're going to do excuse me, in the course of the plan. And the Keeper was consulting towards the end of last year on how his organisation is going to track the improvement models, because the one thing they don't want to happen is they approve your plan for 5 years, in 5 years' time you come back and say, oh, sorry, we haven't actually done any of those things that we said we would do. So they're looking at a way of doing that. In Glasgow, we've actually used our records management plan as almost a project dashboard that we report to our information advisory board with. So my colleague Gordon down there has the fun of preparing this every 4 weeks, and it simply tracks all the elements of our records management plan on a 4-weekly basis and says, here's where we are with it, here's what we're doing, here's the next steps for it, and it keeps a very close handle on that. So it's a useful technique, and we're going to be sharing that with NRS to see if it's something they think could be used more widely. Keeper is also presently consulting on his proposed supplementary guidance on proper arrangements for archiving public records. I take it everyone here knows about that. If you don't, and please be aware that the consultation closes on the 14th of March, so you might want to hurry if you're going to do that. Take as long as you want, take all weekend if you need to. So the consultation is largely driven by the fact that when they brought in the Public Records Act, it repealed the section in the Local Government Act that says local authorities have to make proper arrangements for the management of their archives. And there was a concern that without this supplementary guidance being in place, that there wouldn't actually be adequate provision that dealt with the archiving material. So that's what the consultation's about. The other thing, of course, that's giving us a bit of impetus at the moment is in relation to the historical child abuse inquiry. If you're from an organisation that is in any way involved in the care and education of children in particular, then you may have had the wee letter in from the inquiry saying, please ensure that you don't destroy any of the records that we need to look at. And again, in Glasgow, we got that letter and we decided to suspend the implementation of our retention schedule as far as it's relating to children's records, just to make sure that that information is available should the inquiry ask for it. Practical implementation, the theme of today. Basically what I'm saying here is that yes, systems help, processes help, but it's the people that you really need to take with you. I say there, you start at the top and work your way down, but that's not going to cut it. Having your chief executive signing off on your records management plan is great, brilliant, smashing. Your chief executive is not the one who does the filing. So you need to work from the bottom up as well. You need to get the culture change that people actually see what the importance of records management is all about, using information as a valuable resource. The problem you will encounter is that there are no votes in compliance, and you'll be up against the wall trying to get resources for information management development. If anyone has a solution to that, please share it with us over the networking sessions, because we're struggling with it ourselves, I'll be blunt here. You can develop business cases, but as we've discovered ourselves, it's difficult. It's difficult to make the sums stack up. We implemented an electronic document record management system. Consultants produced a business case that said, oh yes, implement this across the organisation, save millions. But when you actually take that down to the local level, it becomes more problematic. The business case sort of assumed that we're all a homogenous bunch of information workers, and that if you save 20 minutes of time off everyone's day by better information retrieval, therefore you can afford over the organisation to lose X number of staff. You take that down to the local level and it doesn't work. And we tried doing it in legal services where I was at the time, and when we applied the business case model to the 100 people that were doing it in legal services, we discovered that what it meant was we could lose one admin member of staff on alternate Wednesdays. So it's tricky to make it work out. Most of your information management activity, it's soft benefits or it will be a business enabler. In our case, IRMS was an enabler that allowed us to take forward an office rationalisation programme under which people were told, no, you do not get 5 filing cabinets to yourself, you get 1 drawer in that cabinet. Other than that, keep it electronic. Okay? Now, so that I can not just talk the talk but walk the walk, one of our records management themes is that you should create information once and use it often. So this is a slide that I did for a talk that I'm going to be giving at the Solar conference in Carnoustie next week. I thought I'd recycle it because that's good use of information. What I was saying at that conference is that in terms of information management, information governance, PRSA should get pride of place because it underpins all the activity that you're doing. The elements include information security, they include data protection policies, managing information, controlling releases under FOI. It is the glue that holds all your information management together. If you get the RMP right, the rest of it should follow. And if you haven't got the RMP in place, look at the elements because it's a good roadmap for the things that you should be thinking about more generally. And finally, a little bit of horizon scanning. I don't want to steal Frank's thunder. Frank's going to be talking about the data protection regulation later on. I think I've misspelled his name there, so sorry, Frank. The general data protection regulation should, in fact, must be on everybody's radar. It won't change everything, but it will change enough that I would say quite safely that this is the biggest shift in the legal landscape for information governance since the Data Protection Act came into force in 2000. I don't think that's an understatement. You really need to get your head around it. What you're getting your head around is a tricky one as well, because there is still a lot of uncertainty. Now, they had this wonderful thing, the trilogue, as they call it, between the Commission, the Parliament and the other one. I've forgotten who it is. If anyone can help me out on that one, help me. The trilogue is basically the European level negotiations which led to the regulation wording being agreed. It's still subject to going through the final legal sense checking and linguistic checking, so we haven't quite got the final wording of it. But even once that's agreed, there is a lot of elements within that which are left to local discretion. So the data protection regulation was billed as this will create one standard set of rules across Europe for data protection. It doesn't quite do that because there's so much is being left to local discretion. I was at a meeting where we were asking officials from the Information Commissioner's Office how they thought it was going to be implemented. Are they going to repeal the irrelevant parts of the Data Protection Act? Are they going to make new legislation? And the ICO officials basically said, we don't know. They haven't even had the dialogue yet. So there's a lot of uncertainty around there. But we do know some things that are definitely going to change. And those are the things that we can start working towards and building ourselves up to. And on that note, I'm going to say, please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
So I'm just trying